Welcome. I'm Rod Smith, your host with the most, with another exciting chapter of creating and making history of the one and only Awaba Pod. Over the last few years, I've interviewed them all, and today we are up in that even more. I have two of the elite, the best of the West, Campbelltown Magpies, and the orange and black Balmain Tigers. Put that together and you have the almighty West Tigers. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, put your hands together for Coach Maguire and Ronald Griffiths, all the way up in Queensland. Is that true, boys?
It is, mate. There's one of us up here, and Ronnie's holding the fort down there in Sydney, so he's bunkered down at the moment.
Ah, so you're in Sydney, Ronald.
Yeah, good introduction, mate.
Thank you.
Host with the most. Give yourself a rap. Nice. Wow. I love it, brother.
I've actually gone. I usually go a lot longer than that, and
yeah.
I start like rapping. But I thought I'd keep it a bit more sensible today.
You've always been an entertainer, brother.
So, Coach, just to let you know a bit about myself. Growing up with Ronald, Ronald's folks and my folks, pioneers of building part of the community and people of building what we pretty much have here in Newcastle today. We're a pretty spoilt community, and we go a long way back. Probably one of the fondest memories I have of Ronald's father is old Rick is when I was a teenager in high school, so I'm going back to the 80s. I think I was in year 7 in 83, but I think it was about 85. Ronald's father started the first ever Aboriginal football camp, and there was only about 10 or 12 of us at it, and our special guest was Wayne Pearce, who came up for about an hour. We had it up at Morpeth. But then over the next few years, we ended up moving it into Newcastle Uni, where he probably had about 100 plus Aboriginal kids from all over the state coming. So, and you look at it now, like some of the McGrady boys, not Ewan, but the younger ones. You look at some of the people that have come through there. I'm sure there's people that have gone on to the NRL. Do you know any of those fellas, Ronald, that kind of? I mean, young Ash Gordon, who was one of the first Knights, he was at the very first one at the uni.
Yeah, mate, there's plenty that have gone on to play NRL, but I think there's plenty that have gone on that have had distinguished careers, and football back then was a lot different where, if you played first grade rugby league in Newcastle or played reserve grade at a good level in Sydney, that was, extremely cherished, I suppose. It's changed a little bit now where the NRL is the pinnacle, but there are people that have gone on from those to play NRL, and that's something that we're trying to revisit as a club at some stage, where we're hoping we can get that up and running again, Rod.
Oh, look, it's funny because I was getting ready for this interview. I was actually thinking about that. I know it's you'd probably have to do it in zones now because there are so many, because our population has exploded a lot more. But yeah, you could travel around that all year, I reckon, to different states running those football clinics. I just thought they were the best, because Madge, Ronald's father was able to bring up, professional people from Sydney and all that, and they'd put us through all the training drills and all that. So, but the best thing was we all got a free shirt and a football. I still remember that. Wouldn't one of those be worth something now if you had? I still got the old photos, but. Yeah. Michael, just talking about old days, where did you start off? Where are you from and all that? And just to give our community a bit of a know and our listeners, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And how did you get into footy?
Yeah, I was a young Canberra boy, Rod. I had a family that sort of had a lot of farming land out through Canberra and into Queanbeyan, and the Morrisons and the Maguires were quite well known throughout the Canberra region to have farming land, but way back when I was a little pup, the old man, he was a farmer, way back from when he was in year 9. He had to leave school and go off and help on the property, but the government came in and tapped on the door as the land down there in Canberra is 99-year lease, so the old man had to move off the land. So we were sort of, I guess, young guys that were brought up in and around on properties, which I really enjoy. The big city's a bit daunting for me, but I'm living right in the middle of Sydney at the moment. But I grew up in Canberra. I was actually a rugby union boy that used to sneak off and play league every now and then. And when I left school, there was an opportunity where Canberra had a lot of problems with their salary cap in the early 90s. And believe it or not, there was a a little clip in the Canberra Times that said there's an open trial for the Canberra Raiders. So I had to try and convince my next door neighbour to take me to the trial because I had a very staunch rugby union family. And I jumped the fence, grabbed the boots and got my next door neighbour to take me to this trial, and away I went from there. And I was fortunate to be able to score a couple of tries in front of Tim Sheens. And then Tim then came and asked me to come and play rugby league with the Canberra Raiders, and I wasn't able to tell my old man for about 3 months. So I used to say I was going off to rugby union training, and I was actually sneaking off to play rugby league. And eventually the time came when I told the old man, and in that first year at the Canberra Raiders, I sort of started in the under-19s and made my way all the way through into first grade to play outside of Mal Meninga on the wing, where I'd never played wing in my life before. I was a 5'8" or a centre or a fullback. So I guess that was my background of playing days. But unfortunately, at the age of 22, 23, I hurt my neck quite severely, and I had it fixed, and then went back again to try again, and I was convinced that it was time to give the game away, which then put me into coaching at a very young age, at the age of 24, 25. And because Mal was coaching at the Raiders at the time, he asked me to go back and help him out with the strength and conditioning. So my background, I always thought I was going to be in the strength and conditioning space in rugby league, but when Mal departed Canberra and Matty Elliott came in, he asked me to become an assistant coach at the Canberra Raiders. So I was quite young, I guess, at that stage. I was 27, 28, and I was really actually trying to coach some of the players that I played with, which was probably a different challenge. But it was when Craig Bellamy, who I'd played my first reserve grade with game at Canberra at the age of 18, he asked me to go down to Melbourne Storm and help out with to be an assistant coach with the Melbourne Storm. So I went down there for 5 years. Had some great times down there at Melbourne Storm, being able to get in and out of all the AFL teams and gain a lot of knowledge in the coaching space of how clubs worked. And then I went and applied my own skills into the Super League at the Wigan Warriors. Had 2 years over there and had some great times over there coaching in the England arena in the Super League, and then that propelled me back into the Rabbitohs. So I spent 6 great years at the Rabbitohs and was able to achieve something that gave myself, my family and so many people so many great memories. And now our challenge now is to do the same at the West Tigers. So I guess that's a little brief of how I've landed in the job I have.
Going back to something you said there earlier, you come on the wing next to Mal. Was he as daunting? I can remember watching him a lot on TV, just thinking, man, he looks big. But, when you meet people in person, they even look bigger. Was he like that? Did he have that awe about him?
Yeah, I was really fortunate. In the early 90s, I came into the Canberra Raiders when, there was Ricky Stewart, Laurie Daly, Steve Walters, Mal. So it actually gave me a lot of what I have now. And what I mean by that is that I was able to be around and surround myself with the greatest of the game at the time. So that's what I learnt. Unfortunately, my body gave away, but I learnt a lot through that period. And Mal was tremendous for myself as a young bloke. I mean, I was literally 75 kilo ringing wet coming out of school, and I'm playing outside Mal at about 120 kilo, but I think he was probably around about 110 at the time. But to be around people like that, you learn a lot. At the time, you don't recognise or realise what those people give you at the time. But I look back now, and the work ethic, the training, and the enjoyment of actually turning up to training every day, mate, they just ripped in. It was an incredible time to be in and around a team in those early 90s, which, you look at a lot of the coaches that came out of that era. Obviously Craig Bellamy, Dave Furner, Ricky Stewart, Laurie's had a crack at it, and there's quite a number more we just loved playing rugby league. And to be able to, we didn't want to leave training at times. You just wanted to be around the boys, and those are the things that I guess have built my philosophy around the coaching side, is that it's people, the great people that you find or you come through within the game. And there's so many great Indigenous players, which it's like I got to coach Greg Inglis, one of the greatest in the game, and to be able to coach someone like Greg, he just wanted to improve all the time. So I guess I've gone away from just Mal Meninga, but there's so many great players that you come across over your career.
You talked about Craig Bellamy, and I mean, he's quite visual, when the cameras get on him. And I have to say, you're quite visual. Ronald, is that how, being under Madge, Is that how I've always known Ronald? Is his father was the same way, very quiet, until he wanted to really make a point. He might have raised his voice a bit. But Ronald, is that how we can see you when you finish your apprenticeship? That you be banging on glass on the walls and
I hope he doesn't take up too much of that.
how's it all going, Ronald?
We should digress there, Rod, and talk about the text message you sent me after watching a game.
Well, I didn't want to bring that up because I wasn't sure if I was getting you in trouble. But
Nah.
I think you were playing against the Cowboys, I think, at Leichhardt.
Yeah, it was.
And you
It was
were
Cowboys.
flogging them. But then all of a sudden they came back and I think they scored like 3 quick tries. And the cameras were on you, Madge, and you were going off. And I seen Ronald standing behind you. It was a live game, but I think it was a Sunday Arvo 4 o'clock game. And I didn't think Ronald would answer, but I just texted him. I said, your coach is going off a bit there. And Ronald just texts back, yeah. And I said, I dare you to tell him to settle down. And Ronald just
He
said back,
didn't give me that message.
no, all I got back from Ronald was, nah, I'm not going to go there. So I just...
That was a tough day, Rod, that afternoon.
But you ended up pulling out, I think, and winning. But
No,
yeah,
we got beat.
but Ronald, just all seriousness, being under Madge, being a local boy from here, we know your coaching history here, knockouts and the local first grade competition, which is strong competition here in Newcastle. But being able to go down and being a part of that environment, living and breathing it, is it changing you?
Oh, I don't think so, no. So at the role at the moment at the Tigers is to work with a lot of the younger guys that are coming through. I don't think my philosophy around how I would coach and what I do has changed at all. I've certainly learned a lot, and I understand, but for me, I go back to the principles of rugby league, whether it's under sevens through to first grade, they don't change. If you can do those principles well, and that's how I was brought up, if you can do those principles well, it'll hold you in good stead. Then it's just about building off the back of those principles around your philosophy, what you think will work and what doesn't work. So yeah, as a coach, I don't think it changes me too much, but I certainly it's a good learning curve, that's for sure. To see the guys do it day in, day out. I think one thing a couple of young guys got opportunities this year through our train trial program with a Wobbical, and they're certainly talented enough to play first grade, but I remember Madge saying to me, after about 6 weeks in, the challenge for these guys is to do it day in, day out. And for me, learning that to become a first grader, you've got to turn up to training with the right mindset every day and do it day in, day out. Those are the sort of things that you don't understand as a coach being outside that realm, that's what it takes to be a first grader. So those are the sort of things that you really learn. But yeah, from a principal point of view, I don't think it's changed me in any way at all. I know that, when the time comes and I've got my own side or I have more input at the Tigers, I've got a certain set of principles that I believe that, I'll be rigid with and stick to.
What is probably one or two of the, as you said, you've got your foundations, but what are some of the things that you've gone down to West Tigers and just gone, okay, that's a little different, and it's been of great value to you in the learning sense?
I think, again, understanding what it takes to be a first grader. So you watch from afar and you see guys turn up and, they play week in, week out, and you wonder why their form is so, it's inconsistent. And then, the lessons you learn in life about, if you're consistent away from football, and it's something that I've always thought about and been told about, that if you're consistent away from football, your actions, you'll be consistent on the park. So that's a real big learning for me, is the consistency away from what they do at training in their personal life, the consistency when they are training, that then has a flow-on effect to be consistent on the park. And I think that's not just players, that's the club as a whole. That's around what I do, making sure that I'm consistent in my actions away from training. I'm doing the diligence around watching training. Personally, I'm still studying and making sure that I improve all the time. Those are the consistent things that I need to be doing to make sure that the West Tigers get full benefit from me or maximum value from me. And I think that's our club as a whole, and not to be not to be disrespectful to our club or the players that are there or the staff, but it's something that we probably haven't done well, and we need to be better as an organisation. I know that we're working towards that, and the coach and the organisation are driving that. So, and I do see improvements, since I have been there.
Just, Maj, coming back to you, just tapping on what Ronald was saying there. It's, I suppose, to improve the team is to improve the player, and to watch and how can I make them better. How if someone's got a lot of talent, I'll take Jimmy the Jet. Like he's strong, he's fast, defense is not too bad. How do you improve that? Or is it just something you feel like you got to just maintain or keep on top of?
No, one thing I've learned with whether or not it's the youngest player coming through or it's one of the greatest players in the game, they need to be coached and they need to be assisted. They need to be mentored. They have all those things that go on because life outside, the game itself is for 80 minutes of your life every week. You've got the rest of your life that you need to live outside that. And to be a top-line player in this day and age is the way you live your life plays a big part on how you train every day, and it builds the consistencies of what you can do and achieve on a weekend. And I always use the analogy of a young player coming into first grade is that they go through school and they're playing some great footy. They're one of the most talented kids, but they're playing against 18 or 19-year-olds. They then enter the NRL and now they're playing 30 to 35-year-olds. So 15 years of experience teaches you a lot. And I share with my younger players about it's like starting an apprenticeship. If I was a builder and I was having to build a house, mate, I don't really know how to build the house. It's exactly the same as a young player coming in and learning his trade to be a first-grade footballer. They have talent, but it's the day-to-day stuff that they need to learn. And over a period of time, they start learning how to be consistent, learning how to live their life away. You've got to get the right sleep. You've got to live the right... and there's times when you can have a good time, but there's also times where you need to go, you know what, I need to commit to make sure my body, which is really my tool, for me to turn up every single day to be at my best. So those are the things that I share with whether or not they're the youngest or the oldest, is it how you're living your life. And we have a lot that goes on in our lives. It's family, it's kids. It's just understanding where do I fit in to the organisation, and then you've got to get along with everyone to actually get your job done on the day, because one tackle in a game of rugby league can be the difference of winning or losing a game. So you've got to be ready to make that tackle. So I guess those are the things that I share with my players, and then they've got to learn how to do that. And I really enjoy finding out about the outside world of my players, because I know if I can assist and the organisation can assist in that area to have them settled in a really good headspace, well, you're going to turn up and be your natural self, which is the ability of someone like a Jimmy the Jet. We've watched and been able to share, and Jimmy's a great example of a young man that I had at 18, and just the environment, I guess, of where he was at that moment in time. He had to move and find himself, but I see him now and he's in a really good headspace. It's just unfortunate, the lockdown situation and things like that, but he himself has to learn to make sure he gets back into the routines of turning up to train and be at his best, because if he does that, he'll give himself the best opportunities to turn up on the weekend to be Jimmy the Jet.
Yeah, probably one of the analogies around that, Rod, the consistency is, if you're consistently late to train, in the 78th minute when your team wants you to make a tackle, you're going to be late. You won't get there on time. That's one big thing. There was a young guy we had at training earlier in the year, and he was late, and we chipped him a few times, and I spoke to him, and he said, "Well, I'm only late," and that's the analogy I use with him. If you're late to training, mate, you're going to be late when we really need you. The other thing around that too is, because of the change in the competition structure over the last 10, 20 years, a lot of kids are going into first grade when they're a lot younger. They probably don't ply their trade like they used to. They used to come through the under 23s, play reserve grade, then go on to play first grade, and they might play 3 games in a day sometimes. That doesn't quite happen anymore. And I believe that if we can sort of get back to that structure or something similar, it'll allow the opportunity for guys to actually go and do their trade, play in reserve grade, a little bit of first grade, going back, take their learnings back each week and then go back up when it really matters. So, and I think we're leaning towards that as a game again, and I think we'll see great merit in that.
Yeah, I think the game's trying to do that, Ronnie. It's just unfortunate in these times with COVID, it has actually
Yeah.
put a real pause to a lot of the development. So, it's something there that the game will definitely have to look at, because you think about a lot of players that are trying to have that opportunity to have a career of rugby league has been on pause for nearly 16 months now. They do move off in different parts of what they need to do to make ends meet. So the game's got to do a lot of work in that area. But I'm with you, Ronnie. I think having reserve grade back and the junior grades coming through at all clubs is something there that they should build for.
Yeah, that was something I was a bit confused when they did scrap all that and they went straight to the under-20s. And I just thought, and I'm sure there was, you guys would know a lot more than me, that there was probably a lot of those under-20s that were probably great teams, but no other club wanted them. And it's like they probably just had to go back to their regular clubs, which is a big difference, when you, even if it's under-20s or the Jersey Flag and all that, you're still with that NRL club, and I'm sure it'd have to give you some type of confidence and feeling in the way you present yourself with every day, knowing that, hey, I play for West Tigers or Manly, whoever. But then, I always felt like it should have been at least, under 22s, 23s, because I think it's a big thing too. It's like in America, they have the college ball, and it's because it's a good way of allowing the body to also physically to develop.
But also too, I think, Rod, you've got a few more senior guys that have been around a little bit longer, being around those 18-year-olds. Like, as a coach, the value of your leading players or your senior players is so critical, because they're the ones that are in the change rooms every single day. The coach, we're dealing with them, quite sporadically at times, and you want to get to them as much as you can. But the players that you play with are the ones that have the biggest influence. So your leaders or your senior players play a massive part. So to have a few more senior reserve graders within that, I believe, is a big part of the development of a young man. So when a young little upstart comes in thinking he's come out of school and he's the top dog, and then all of a sudden he's got to go up against a man, the senior guy can just pull him back a little bit and say, mate, no, you've got to do it this way, rather than just going off and making it up the way they'd like to.
Yeah. I'm just going to jump ahead. The 4-part series on West Tigers on Fox Sports, I just wonder, I don't have Fox, but I've seen the previews of it. Can I ask you guys, how doesn't that put like extra pressure on you? I mean, it's great for the supporters and that to get an insight and get more of a feel of what's actually happening. But do you feel like that puts more pressure on you?
I don't think so, Rod. I think people have that opinion of it does, but there's also reasons why I've chosen as a coach to allow that to happen. I'm a very private person, and I very rarely would like these sorts of things going on around a club, and it's the first time that's ever been done. But I feel that the West Tigers has probably been bashed around a little bit as a club over the last 10 years for where they're at. And I thought it was a great opportunity to actually open the doors a little bit. I mean, they are still holding back on a fair bit that goes on within the club. But just to show the people and what everyone is actually doing within that club to take it forward. Changing a club doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of work. There's a lot of committed people within the organisation. I want a lot of young men to be able to see our club for what it is actually being portrayed as. And I think sometimes clubs can get caught in a bit of a cycle. So I'd like to think that the program will show our club in a great light, great people. There's a lot of passion in and around the West Tigers. I mean, we've got two clubs come together, and there's so many supporters out there that I know that are just waiting in the realms to want to jump on board. So if this brings a few more of the tight supporters to us, then that's the reasons why I'd like it to happen, because it's a momentum that happens within a club, and we've got a lot of young guys like young Dane Laurie, Sean Bloor, Tommy Talau. I could go on, Alex Seafarth. I've got plenty of younger men coming through, and I'd like to think that people can see our club we're building through our juniors, because that will allow us to get to the higher level. So again, going back to the pressure part, you put pressure on yourself every day because we want to be successful.
Ronald, do we see you featuring it at all?
No, not really, mate, just in the background.
So you don't give any advice?
That's for the top end of town, Rod.
It's for the top end. You're assistant coach.
Ronnie's probably talks himself down here a little bit, but mate, Ronnie's a big part of what's going on in the club, and he's established programs, and I guess we haven't gone out and spruiked, I guess, about the different things that are going on in the club, whether or not it be in the Indigenous space or Pacific Islander space and those sorts of different things. But what Ronnie's done for the club has really transformed the image of who we are. Obviously, my past, being at my previous club, had a big Indigenous component to it, and I want the West Tigers to be, the sought-after club for those players to want to come, and Ronnie's played a massive part in the background, so I think sometimes he talks himself down a little bit there.
Yeah. Just on that, so Awabakal, we're primarily a health organisation, but we also have 2 preschools and NDIS and a lot of other departments. How's the relationship? I might go to you, Ronald. How's the relationship going, and what's your role in all of this?
I think initially my role was to make the introduction between Awabakal and the West Tigers. Well, how's it going? We had 3 guys who were trained trialists at the start of the year get an opportunity, and one of them's still currently with the club. The other 2 dropped out, one for different reasons, and one just wasn't quite up to it from a rugby league perspective, or probably was, but it was the wrong time of his life with what he was trying to do. So it's poking along okay, mate. I see opportunities to keep building and growing the program. We had a couple of little different things that we were going to roll out through the Newcastle community this year, but due to COVID at this stage, we've been unable to.
Over to you, Madge. With what you've started with Awabakal, what would you like to see happen next year? Is there anything you could see that you'd maybe want to build on, or anything just to build on what we already have with you guys?
We want to definitely build on what we have, and COVID's definitely put some hurdles in front of us in what Ronnie and I have spoken about and what we want to achieve. But that's just a hurdle. We've got to fight our way through that, and to be able to sit down with Awabakal at the start, their vision was very similar to what I have as a coach and what we would like to have within our club. Providing opportunities, and I know Ronnie's made mention there around, we've had a number of players come in and some have left us, but that is what the program is. It's to provide an opportunity, and it's not so much just about players, it's staff as well. So we've started, I think we're still at a bit of a starting point of where we want to get to, because I just know what it can look like. Once the COVID goes away, and we want to be able to create, whether it might be physio opportunities, whether or not it might be administration opportunities, it's not just about around players, but it's a program that actually helps many. And out through the west of Sydney, there's many Indigenous people out there, and we want to be able to have them come on the journey with us, using the rugby league as our path to bring people closer to us. But it's also too to provide and change lives. That's the site of what Ronnie and myself continually talk about, and the club's very much behind that. And to have Awabakal on board, and everything that I talk to the board there at Awabakal, they always talk about, it's not just about Awabakal, it's about the people. And that to me was something that really resonated, is that you need to have people around you to be able to help build, and they've definitely done that for myself and the club.
Yeah, I think just tapping on what you said, it is. And for us as an organisation, it's about us also building our name, our brand, and partnering with guys like yourselves. And also, on game days when we see Awabakal just all around the coaches' booth, it's like, it's really putting our name out there. Because as we talked about in the footy day camps, the Newcastle Aboriginal community is just so big now. And and for us to keep our community healthy and look after them, we need to expand also on a promotional level, so we can so people can go, okay, that's Awabakal, look what they're doing on that side of things. So it just makes us, I suppose, just that the people can just say, I can trust in them and I want to attend with them. I heard there was an interesting, so you've got a young fella or someone from Newcastle down there working now, is it, Ronald? It's working at the club or something?
Playing?
No, I think he's working at the club.
Josh was coming in and out, mate. Is that?
Oh, Josh Day.
Yeah. How did he come about? I heard you had an interesting conversation with you, Madge.
Do we expand on that one, Roy? I don't know what you can go there, mate. But no, look, that's part of what we want to offer is someone like Josh comes down and just helps in the background and. Mate, incredible worker. Like, you see him come down and, the commitment of what Ronnie and Josh do. They get up at, 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning and they're driving down and, mate, they're always there on time, ready to go, and they get the job done. And, it's providing an opportunity for people that not are just in football. It's, Josh, he likes his strength and conditioning so he can actually connect with our staff, but he also helps set up and manage and deal with the day-to-day stuff along with other staff. So, they're the opportunities that we're obviously providing.
Yeah. No, Ronald.
I know Ronnie wants to go down a certain path here, but
I just said I was.
You met him at the Tribal League, Rod.
Yeah, mate, it was a great meeting, that one. Obviously.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like trying to build up a relationship, yes, through a Warpical, but as you said, you're also representing Leichhardt and Campbelltown. How's the partnership going on those levels down that way? Is there much anything happening with the communities down that way with you guys?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. Just from my perspective, we've got Tharawal on board.
Yep.
That was negotiated through a third party. They've come on board as a corporate partner. But again, I think we're only at the... and we've also got Kari on board who are in Western Sydney. They're an Aboriginal sponsor. But I think we're only at the tip of the iceberg. Whether it's Western Sydney, Newcastle, it doesn't really matter. I think right across New South Wales and, we can have meaningful partnerships with Aboriginal organisations, but I think we can create pathways for Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
It's just up to us now to really release the shackles and go, well, we're going to get right on board with this and we're going to create meaningful pathways, whether it's supporters, players, sponsors, whatever it is, staff members. But it's up to us now as an organisation where we're at the tip of the iceberg and we can do something special. It's just, whether we want to jump the fence and really go on with it now.
And I think you're right there, Ronald, as in there's a lot of, there's a lot of people out there, but especially in the Aboriginal community, they're like, why are we sponsoring this and why are we sponsoring that? And it's exactly what you're saying. It's creating pathways. A lot of times we as Aboriginal people, we might be saying, oh, why aren't the white fellas giving us a chance with this or with this? Well, sometimes we've got to create our own opportunities. And I think this is one of those ways where, yes, it's us taking the step and saying, look, we're strong enough now. We want to have a partnership with you, but with that partnership, we want to create some, as you said, some pathways for development, whether employment or learning, as Madge said earlier, with physio and things like that too.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the current leadership or leaders in the Newcastle community are certainly of that same view that, the door might be slightly ajar, but they'll kick it open and they'll keep it open for the people of their community. And they've always been like that. The saying they use is they'll fly or build the plane while they're flying it, which they've done in this instance. So I've no doubt that the relationship so far over the first 12 months has hit some hurdles and hasn't been, there are things that we need to improve, but that's because we went with the end product straight up rather than trying to build a process. But we can do that as we're going. But it just means that, we've got to make sure the lines of communication are open and work out exactly what the Newcastle, consortium want or the Warpical, want to make sure that we can fulfil their requirements and also achieve what we're trying to do as an organisation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like, Ronnie, what you said there, mate, is that the boys probably went to the end product. Yeah, we're making what that end product will look like every single day, but the fact that they pushed the door open and said, mate, we're going to just take this on, it says a lot about, what a Wobical's about, is that, they're forcing things to happen and, sometimes they can take a long, long time, but I like the fact is that they're willing to put themselves out there to have a red-hot crack at it.
Look, boys, we're going to wrap it up soon, but I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. Madge, Ronald, greatest Aboriginal player you've seen come through the NRL of all time? Maybe someone you've seen or just read about,
I think I'd probably have to go with my good mate Greg Inglis. To coach him, in 2005, Greggy came down to Melbourne as a real young athletic Indigenous boy, and to watch his development and turn himself into one of the all-time greatest in the game. I'll definitely have to go with Greg. There's plenty there, and to coach at Souths and have Nathan Merritt and many other great players come through. But Greg probably tips the one for me. Like, I was able to watch him daily doing things that people never got to see. I mean, he would run in full stride, flat out, and he'd be able to pick a ball up without breaking a stride with one hand, and you'd just see him keep running, and you just think, did you just see that?
Yeah.
They're the little things that, as coaches, mate, we get to see that all the time.
I'm a few years older than Ronald. He'll probably tell you that when he saw me as a 20-year-old, you probably saw that Greg Inglis, Ronald. Ronald's father coached me when I was 19, just turned 20, and they gave me Rookie of the Year, but nothing happened from there. But
we all dream.
I'd probably go down a different path where I've seen so many because being an Aboriginal man, that was predominantly, I used to watch everyone, but I love watching all Aboriginal players. I could go with Bowen, Ella, Thurston, GI. There are so many over time. But for me, when I grew up, the big thing when I spoke about Newcastle Rugby League and that being so strong in the knockout, the guys that I used to love watching were Alan Williams, Al LeBrock, Edward Smith, Wally Gibson, guys like that. They were absolutely phenomenal players, and a lot of those guys for me should have went on to play NRL. That they were my heroes. I grew up around that scene, so it was great.
Yeah, it's true. Alan Williams, if the Newcastle Knights, when they came in way back, could have come in a few years earlier, he was just freakish. Yeah, but he was a fella up this way. Gentlemen, Madge, I'll just give you one tip. I think you need at least four Aboriginal fellas in your team to win a comp. If I look at most teams that win a grand final, that's just me. I just turned 50 this year, but if I lose probably 30 kilo...
That's why we're building opportunity, right? Because I do believe that they are some of the greatest players that's played our game. Indigenous players, and you've obviously got your Polynesians and all those sorts of things. But the athleticism of what you see, I got to coach Cody Walker, and you look at how he's going at this present moment, and to watch his leadership and how he's grown as a person. I think not just the football side, it's actually what he's doing in and around the community, and what he represents, and he's got a beautiful family, and they're the sorts of things that a lot of young fellas can look up to and say, I can make it. And I remember when Cody first came to South, he wasn't quite sure where he was going to go with his career, but he put his head down, and look at him now. He'll be up there with one of the all-time greats as well. So, it's great to see.
If you're looking for a hard-headed hooker, that's what Ronald used to play. Just have a look at that.
He keeps reminding us, Rod, don't worry.
Oh, does he?
I should have told that story about Josh now.
Wait to get one in.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you. It's great to talk about football. It's great to talk about partnerships and what we're developing with you guys. I'm hoping that it is something that can grow to bigger, and I'm hoping it's also just through our discussions that other Aboriginal organisations might go, we've got to make our own paths too, and by partnering with organisations like yourself, it creates a lot of opportunities. So thank you on all those things, but most of all, thank you for joining us today.
Good man. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
See you later.